and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in once more. Today is a hectic day. Today we have a whole lot of panelists who will be joining our platform very soon. We'll be talking today a whole lot on what is happening right now. Cameroon is caught in a corner, very tight corner, because it has demonstrated a lot of arrogance and stubbornness to respect international community calls and some individuals who have seen that Cameroon should have really approached the problem it has in a different way. But since then, Cameroon has not yet done anything that favors all the calls and all the advices it received from left and right. At this moment now, Cameroon is in that tight corner because the United Nations and the international communities have kept on mounting pressure, and the pressure is unbearable to an extent that President Biya has decreed for an extraordinary session after the parliamentary session just held, and they didn't make mention of the special status. It's been a crazy moment, and Cameroon has been in the news for the negative things because it's been a very long time. The only thing you can Google or get on Cameroon was the poor handling of the crisis that has taken place in the northwest and the southwest. The military option that was taken was not a successful one. In today's program, we're giving the platform open to people to participate, to televiewers, to be able to link and join the platform either through Skype or through a phone call, and perhaps put their problems or their questions ahead so we can attempt to answer them. We are at the service of the people. Media 2 Africa has been doing everything to make sure it pushes the information that would really reach the people, the kind of information, first-hand information, and to equally during programs of charity where somebody is trying to raise something to succeed in touching the lives of those who need help. Media 2 Africa is at that service too, not only organizing debates and diasporama. We have programs that really does encourage people who do humanitarian gestures and need to be pushed. Today will be the main topic will be centered around the pressure that has been mounted on Cameroon that is unbearable at this level, and we're looking up to see what President Biya and his government does concerning the pressure, because it has gotten to a level where American government representatives are now at the head of the Security Council, UN Security Council. We followed all over the news. We followed Kelly, who was very, very vocal on the situation and telling the world how Cameroon has been very reluctant to do everything to participate in a real dialogue. So the shari that took place in Yaoundé that was called dialogue has not been considered any dialogue at all. So international communities and France, America, and some of these countries that have been following the problems that Cameroon is going through for a long time now recommended for a real inclusive dialogue. Because the inclusiveness, the dialogue that took place did not meet any inclusive status, because the real people that represent the voices of the southern Cameroon were not represented, because first of all they were fear of being arrested and locked up. And up to then, except some people who are kind of disguised as opposition, who according to public opinion, that people who did participate were just simply like the same party that just came in their diverse ranks to talk politics, and not a real opposition or people that represented the voices of the southern Cameroon citizens, the northwest and the southwest. We saw a whole kind of a reluctance in approaching the problems, so even the people have said it. This was just a cooperative match that claimed equal rights at the judicial fields of administration and equally education. But the poor handling escalated and it has become almost a civil war in Cameroon. The question the general public, political pundits have been asking, why did it cost Biya so much to just go out as usual and try to meet the people? Uh, what people, general opinion observes is President Biya didn't believe nobody can stand up and try to stand against the long time military power that has been there. But to his greatest surprise, he is getting to his Waterloo. So before accepting for this dialogue, it has really raised the dust for a very long time. The mics will be open for everybody who has to attend. Skype calls for those who want to participate and put forth questions or something they think they should contribute to see how could best resolve the problems Cameroon is having. Before we will delve into opening the mics so that people do participate, we'll give a kind of run-up of the series of events that has been taking place during these very tough moments for Cameroon. We have known since this crisis how the military has been handling the problem in its own way very radically, and equally it has gotten to the information, the news of the ears of everybody, how even those who started as pacific protesters have been radicalized. In the course of the fighting, trying to crush the people that stood up for a right, the people got radicalized and decided to stand up from their slumber. Those who were just peacefully expecting to hear the voice to be heard, and since they were pushed to the wall and they were not given a chance to express themselves, it became a situation where they said, okay, it was now time they stand up and express and send a message in a very strong way, because peaceful ways did not work. Biya has been in power since 1982, and since then, the Anglophone system have been observing a kind of marginalized rule where, for the length of time, few Anglophones have held great political positions or have held positions where their voices could be heard. Despite the prime ministerial post, that is always a kind of reference, like where people listen to Biya say, since his ascension to power, he has given the prime ministerial post to Anglophones, as if it is a kind of compensation. We've not seen any other Anglophone hold very critical decision-making positions or ministerial positions with full portfolio, except the Atanganji, who is kind of the same, handling the same way Biya does. When this crisis started, all of us can bear to say Atanganji, the Minister of Interior, Issa Chiruma, and a whole lot of these political pundits, people that have been working hand in hand with Biya, they didn't say there was a problem. They are totally ignored and said there wasn't any Anglophone problem, till it got to a point where accepting it came from the Biya they thought they were protecting. President Biya staged a kind of challenge because he came from nowhere and acknowledged it, though very passively, because creating the English faction at Enam after 50 years of unification, was simply a kind of a kind of demonstration or telling the public that this is the right time, this is the only time after the length of time Cameroon has put together that Anglophones were being subjected to participate in courses at Enam in French. Same for other schools of administration, schools of public works, and equally high institutions in Cameroon too. The official language has always been French. Marginalization was a very clear And it was alarming to an extent that people who have been victims, like the Anglophone community in Cameroon, they didn't feel themselves in the union. They didn't feel very welcome in the union, the unification of Cameroon. It has been poorly managed too. Though all this crisis, throughout this crisis, Anglophones have been pacific. It has gotten to a moment where Francophone Cameroonians of good faith have stood up with the Anglophone Cameroonians, and they have openly declared their intentions. They have openly supported the Anglophone stance because it has been giving a kind of sleepless night to Cameroon since the struggle started. When you do an analysis, and you will see that despite the position maintained by Biya and his close collaborators, who people would claim they have not been good collaborators or good advisors, as they would have told Biya, if you don't know there's a problem, we know there's a problem. Because we saw close collaborators who came on media to say there wasn't an Anglophone problem and reluctantly submitted and started acknowledging the fact that there was a problem. But after blood has spilled, it has cost a lot for the nation Cameroon just to accept there's been a problem. The question here is, was it really worth the matter to let this blood spill before we accept there's been a problem and try to resolve it? So most people have seen that reluctance and that kind of demonstration of arrogance because televiewers of local channels of the Republic of Cameroon have witnessed situations where ministers and close collaborators of the Biya government have vehemently refused to accept the existence of an Anglophone problem. They reduced it to a kind of regional problem. The thing that the international body, the thing that observers, people have seen is so clear. All the public institutions that existed have kind of been closed down to submit Anglophones to dependency. We come to rate, we can enumerate things like the marketing board. We can talk of the famous marketing board. We can talk of Cameroon Bank. We can talk of CDC and so many of these Anglophone establishments that really held its name high were gradually closed, and this pushed Cameroonians, Anglophone Cameroonians to be very dependent on the Francophone Cameroon setup. It has been widely criticized, even right to the educational sector, administrative sector, because following a protocolial order in respect to the norms of administration after the president, we have the representative of the Senate, and we equally have the House of Parliament before you even talk of a prime minister when it comes to standing the ranks of a protocolial order in the Biya's administration. Today, we are unfortunate that we don't have a representative from the governing party that can defend the stance of the government. So we have one of the finest political analysts of the Cameroonian history, and equally the struggle that he has been in close hand to hand and been very versed on the situation back in Cameroon and equally on the section of the struggles. He will be here attempting to answer the questions that you out there watching would pose through either Skype or on the lines that will be opening for you people to contact us, connect to us. And this person is no other person than Mr. Kenneth. Mr. Kenneth just joined the studio, and he will be attempting to answer your questions, and equally, while we look up to the other participant panel who will be here in a short while, who has been caught up by traffic. So, Mr. Kenneth, welcome to the platform.
Thank you very much, Modest. I am glad to be here today again for a special edition of our program, just before what President Biya has called an extraordinary session of what continues to pass for a bicameral assembly at the former Federal Capital Territory of Yaoundé.
It is really a kind of an impromptu because it took so many people unaware after a parliamentary session took place and nothing was mentioned.
In fact,
so it's kind of just saying the pressure from outside was unbearable, as we would not expect to see an extraordinary session when the normal session just ended. Meanwhile, the status, the special status given to English Cameroon during the just ended national dialogue was even mentioned. So it is kind of the pressure is really unbearable, as it is seen from the kind of impromptu call of extraordinary Congress. What is your take about it?
well, my take on this is that Paul Biya, the president of La République, continues to try to play hardball. But at his age, and given the nature of which the struggle for the liberation of the occupied territories has advanced, I really wonder whether he can continue his gamesmanship, his political gamesmanship that he has been doing for a pretty long time, since 1992.
Yeah.
My brother Modest, before I continue, let me make one clarification, especially to our brothers, as you would, and sisters, of course, of East Cameroon, or La République du Cameroun. Let it be clear that we do have a Cameroon Occidental, which is Cameroon Occidental, which is the southern Cameroons, and we have a Cameroon Oriental,
Yeah.
which is La République du Cameroun, or French Cameroon. And in fact, we also used to have a Cameroon Meridional, which is the northern Cameroons. But it is Cameroon Oriental and Cameroon Occidental which merged in a certain way in 1961 to form what would have been called appropriately as the Union of Federated Cameroon Republics. Union of Federated Cameroon Republics. Because, what's his name? André-Marie Mbida used to be on the other side, and Dr. Endeli used to be on the other side. Then when André-Marie Mbida, of course, had trashed Louis Paul Ojula in elections in Yaoundé, Louis Paul Ojula came up with a scheme together with Pierre Mesmer, as well as, what's his name? Anyway, they came up with a scheme to unseat André-Marie Mbida. And that's how they found a much more malleable person from the north part of Cameroon, Amadou Babatura Ahijo, to replace André-Marie Mbida. In the 1959 elections that were conducted in the southern Cameroons, or 1958, I should say, in southern Cameroons, the opposition, John Fonchai, defeated the incumbent government of Dr. E.M.L. Endeli, Emmanuel Lifafa Endeli. And that was the first peaceful transition of power on African soil from government to the opposition in the southern Cameroons. So that is how Fonchai replaced Endeli. So by 1961, when Amadou Ahijo was on the other side in French Cameroon and in English Cameroon, you had Fonchai, these two people merged. Foncha had the choice of joining Nigeria or La République of French Cameroon. However, the vote went in favor to join French Cameroon. And when the vote went in favor to join French Cameroon, it was because of what the French Cameroons had offered. We were going to be complete separate entities, two federated republics joining together. Amadou Ahidjo, even though he had a bigger landmass and Foncha had a smaller landmass, these two were coming together. The French Cameroon had their assembly over there in Yaoundé, and the Southern Cameroons, the assembly in Boya, together with the House of Chiefs. So after the joining, John Gu Foncha became vice president and Amadou Ahidjo president. Then you had, I can't remember whether it was Jean-Vincent de Paul Ahanda or Anze Chungi, not Anze, the other Chungi, Simon Pierre Chungi, who was prime minister on the other side, but not like our prime minister, because the prime minister in the Southern Cameroon is the head of government. So this is what gave. And in the Southern Cameroons, we were taking care of everything. We had our treasury, we had our police force, and so on and so forth. Complete distinct entity from La République du Cameroun. And when Foncha became vice president, a little bit later on, in 1966, Augustin Gomjoa, or circa 1966, I should say, Augustin Gomjoa took over as premier of the Southern Cameroons. And we still had our treasury and our police force in the Southern Cameroons. Everything controlled. So, it is much later on that in 1966, when Amadou Ahidjo had this fratricidal war with the police force in the Southern Cameroons and Gomjoa, that a lot of things now transferred forcefully, force-handedly. In fact, the British judge who judged the case of the Agbo, the police officer also, and the other guy, resigned in protest at Ahidjo's high-handedness of miscarriage of justice. They took things now over. The Ahidjo looted the Southern Cameroon's treasury, transferred it to Yaoundé, and they transferred the entire Southern Cameroon's force over to Yaoundé. And in fact, if I can go back a little bit even, at midnight on the 30th of September 1961, before the 1st of October, J.O. Fields permitted the entry of the armed forces of La République du Cameroun into the Southern Cameroons. And that is why since then we have been an occupied territory. So when we say that the occupied territories of the Southern Cameroons, it is not a joke. It is steeped in historical reality. Absolutely nothing else but historical reality. You see, Brother Modest, I want to make this clarification because there are some people somewhat wish-washy on the history of these two territories, and they say that, or they claim that, the Southern Cameroons is not an occupied territory. It is. The Southern Cameroons is an occupied territory. It's like Palestine.
Yeah.
It is like Palestine. That is why the international boundaries are there. Cameroon won La République, or the contiguous territory, won Bakassi from Nigeria because Bakassi was a part of the Southern Cameroons with the German Milner line of 1919.
Yeah.
So, with the surprise that happened yesterday, or was it 2 days ago?
2 days ago.
These political jerks in parliament, I don't know what they are up to, but it remains to be seen what they are trying to do tomorrow. Modest.
I want to say special hi to Dominica Wasum, Kangon George, and Napi Tani, who are watching. Kangon George is watching all the way from Virginia, and Wasum same all the way from DC. And Kangon George, I know in the chat he said at unification, where did they put the police force that the Southern Cameroonians had? Were they either absorbed in the union government, or where did all these establishments, like the currency by then, the national police, and a lot of government institutions that the federal Southern Cameroon had?
Okay. If you look at the laundry list of what was offered during the plebiscite, what Nigeria offered and what La République du Cameroun offered, there is no gainsaying that La République du Cameroun offered something much better. In that laundry list, it was clear La République du Cameroun will take care of certain things, and the Southern Cameroon's premier would also take care of certain things. Nothing was going to be merged as such. And even if it were merged, our Southern Cameroon's treasury was supposed to be separate. Okay. The modalities of the union, the instruments of this union between La République du Cameroun, Cameroun Occidental, and Cameroun Oriental had to be written down, put in a document, and submitted to the United Nations Secretariat of the Trust Territories. This trust territory thing was abandoned, or it no longer exists. I think it's as of 1994. But up and until today, that's what we talk about, the Union Treaty. That Union Treaty does not exist. So what effectively happened is that Amadou Ahidjo, le grand répétiteur, as he was called, because he was just repeating what the French were telling him, le grand répétiteur, Amadou Ahidjo, systematically dismantled and annihilated everything Southern Cameroonian. They started with our power system, the power plant at Yoke. They continued with the Public Works Department, Cameroon Bank, even Cameroon Bank, because like Pa Foncha had said at the time, you could not borrow more than 1 million francs in the banks in East Cameroon, in French Cameroon. But with Cameroon Bank, you could borrow up to 5 million francs. And there were all these instruments, all the depositors of farmers' banks, farmers' monies, and so on and so forth. So people were living from East Cameroon and coming over to West Cameroon to borrow money, businessmen. And Ahidjo did not like that. That's why he shut down a lot of these things, the National Produce Marketing Board, and all these other hallmarks of Southern Cameroon, Santa Coffee Estate, and was able and transferred them over to East Cameroon. Things, the power, things were broken down and lit and carried over to East Cameroon, just to destroy completely the Southern Cameroons. That is why, you see, when as they would call it, his illustrious successor, Paul Biya, when he sat at the interview with Mo Ibrahim in France, he said openly that, well, we tried to, we meaning the majority tyranny of French Cameroon, tried to assimilate.
If you'll speak in the mic, please.
And it hasn't
And I'll speak here.
Yeah. In 1984, Georges Ngango, when he was education minister, they tried to completely wipe out the GCE in what they were calling a harmonization of education. But when we demonstrated, I was part of that demonstration, when we demonstrated in 1984, throughout the Southern Cameroons, he had to remove his friend Georges Ngango as minister and replace him. You know. So that is it. The two were, they had to deposit. That is why this whole matter, it's not only a fault of La République du Cameroun per se. It's also a fault of the United Nations that the decolonization process of the Southern Cameroons was botched. And then if you even go back to Her Majesty's government of England, why were they separating the Northern Cameroons from the Southern Cameroons? Why? The United Nations simply told them to administer these territories on their trust, on their behalf. Then they claimed that for administrative reasons, Southern Cameroon was going to go to Enugu for administrative reasons, and then Northern Cameroon, was it Maiduguri or whatever it was, you know?
So that is why most people tend to say it is like the United Nations had handed the English Cameroon to be assimilated by the French, because else it would have given English Cameroon the choice of either voting to stay independent, but that option was not put on the table. So English Cameroon had only either to say yes to join Nigeria or stay with Republic of Cameroon. And they took a very bigger step to go back to where history had originally put them, because before the coming of the Germans, the colonial masters, Cameroon has had one known that the union, till the separation of the big forces that came and impacted the situation where Cameroon became a separate state. So coming back to Cameroon with that guaranteeing English Cameroonians their own stance, because gradually they were being absorbed from a federal republic to a united republic, and to finally to La République. What steps did the government in place or the representatives of both English and French Cameroon, did they consider the Fumban Conference that was stated English and French would be official languages, and the federated structure of the state were not supposed to be tampered with? But at breaking down everything, President Ahijo and President Biya gradually and took it like a one-man decision and became a United Republic of Cameroon, and finally to Republic of Cameroon. I don't know if any forces in place were questioned or were consulted before dissolving the federal structure.
Okay. Let me mention from the very outset that these world powers, as they are, they have some sort of a common understanding amongst themselves, and they work for their own interest, at least especially back at that time, especially from the League of Nations turning it over to the United Nations, UN or United Nations Organization. What happened in the Southern Cameroons is unfortunate, because the exact opposite happened in Kuwait and Iraq. While we, the British, were busy separating the Southern Cameroons from, the entire German Cameroons. In the case of Kuwait in Iraq, the Kuwaitis were wanting to join back Iraq in the 50s and the 60s, because they clearly told them that, look, we are not separate. Those are our brothers. That's the bigger land. They were wanting to join back Iraq, the Kuwaitis. But the British said absolutely no, no, no to that. And while they were separating us and out there in the Southern Cameroons, over there in the Middle East, in the Arabian Peninsula, they were refusing the Kuwaitis from joining Iraq. Now, in the case of the Southern Cameroons, like you mentioned a few moments ago, please, look, both government and opposition wanted to be independent. I have nothing to do with either Nigeria or French Cameroon. Both government and opposition. In fact, the Manfei meeting of 1959, there was a meeting in Manfei in 1959 in what was then the Manfei division. And also there were meetings in the Lancaster House in England. And in all these meetings, both Foncha and Endeli stated clearly that they wanted to be independent. But towards the closure of some of these meetings, that is when they realized that the British were not prepared to move an inch at all, and were going to tell them, hey, you either join Nigeria or you join La République du Cameroun. That is why, much later on, and as the documents which have been currently declassified show, the French actually called the Southern Cameroons un cadeau de Sa Majesté. So the Southern Cameroons was a present to the French, because How would you explain that in this, first of all, when Foncha was going to the Fumban conference and Ahidjo was going over there, Ahidjo had advisors, French advisors. I mean, Ahidjo was a postal service worker who failed his BAPC. Okay? And Foncha and others were teachers. Standard, whether it's standard 5 or they call that thing. Standard 5 teachers. And they got into politics with Pamuna and the other people. So, but at that time, we had degree holders too. We also had 1 or 2 degree holders who were of that bent. The Fumban conference itself is not that, these guys did not have advisors. But if you look at the notes from the Fumban conference, it is not as bad as people are thinking. The problem with the notes from this thing is that the implementation went awry. The France had a hidden agenda.
Yeah.
And Ahidjo was just a grand repetiteur that they were using to, achieve what they wanted to achieve. The French, in their grand master plan, was to completely wipe out anything English. And that is why by 1966, when Ngomjua was there, Ahidjo was looking at some of the actions of Ngomjua as, in fact, as being synonymous to being a terrorist. Rather than Ahidjo looking at this thing as that, hey, Ngomjua is the prime minister over there, he's managing his territory. But in Ahidjo's mindset, why would Ngomjua be doing this, ordering arms through CDC? That is what the Southern Cameroon's government had always done, So, so the issue here really is that France, through their puppeteer, Amadou Ahidjo, and Amadou Ahidjo continues today through another puppeteer, Paul Biya, they were in the process of annihilating the Southern Cameroons, wiping off this place off the map. That is why when Biya went recently, in fact, when Biya went to France twice on issues of this nature without being present in Cameroon, and they asked him and he went to report to them, he said, we failed. We failed. Paul Biya, by 79 or whatever year that was already working with Elf Serepka to replace Ahidjo. And Elf Serepka was part of the French intelligence services. So they worked in tandem to replace Ahidjo. And by 1982, when Ahidjo was purported to be sick or ill, if you would, Biya pretended as if he was not interested in any position. But they had done a lot of groundwork. And he eventually took over as president. And he was not even supposed to take over as president in 1982. Why? Because you had the Southern Cameroons and then you had French Cameroon. So the person who ought to have been president in 82 and not Paul Biya had to come from the Southern Cameroons. Yeah.
And the issue, most people are really like, it's not been a Biya mistake alone, because when you see the way this problem has been handled on the national media, where these political pundits and some of the intellectuals of Cameroon have handled the situation on all TV platforms, they have vehemently denied the existence of an Anglophone problem, till it got to a point where Biya himself started creating English sections at ENAM, started bringing up things that showed them that he has acknowledged, though silently, but trying to apply it. But only because President Biya did not have a kind of honest elite that could come up with what was happening on the terrain.
No, you see, Modest, these guys are being patently dishonest, okay? Paul Biya himself was the chairman of a 1979 commission that had to look into the so-called Anglophone problem.
Yes.
These people are pretending. They're a bunch of pretenders, all of them. They believe in telling lies. They believe in casuistry. telling lies and for people to think when they say something is black, they want you to believe that it is white when it is actually black. So up until now, as we speak, where is Paul Biya's prime minister report when he was prime minister of in that 1979? He has not produced any report. And then those other opportunistic puppets in office in that he has nominated left, right, and center, of course, they are all answerable to him. Nobody can sit with him at par and talk to him directly. A lot of those people are, in fact, Paul Biya is almost about 90 years old now. So many of these people just respect him for his age. And you know, according to our culture, it is somewhat disrespectful to tell an old person face blank that, look, you're lying. But we cannot sustain lies for 58, 60 years. No, we can't. So the truths have to, no matter how much you hide it under the carpet, it's going to come out one way or another.
Yeah,
and,
like somebody said, the truth pressed to earth, be it what we shoot like a mushroom. We have Nappy, who is calling from New York. Nappy, the line is open. Mr. Kennedy is here. We attempt to address your question. Nappy, you're on.
Hello.
Yes, hi.
Hi, Mr. Nappy. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I want to tell you about whatever you demonstrate today about the history of our country. However, I want to just make sure that we are on the same way, because the past for me is what is called the constant in mathematics. The variable is the future. How can we use that past to change the future? Most of the people don't want to go straight to look at the future.
Yes.
And they want to deny the past. That's where my problem is. I cannot understand how Anglophone, we could talk about Anglophone and deny the position of the SDF as the person or as the organization or as the party that represents the people of the Anglophone. I think that's the main party, and the position of that main party, if it's at the parliament or at the senate or at the grand débat or in the public TV, it's supposed to reflect the value and the willing of the people of the Northwest and the Southwest.
Yes.
First of all, and secondly, for the Cameroonian as a whole. But when people come, even from the Northwest and the Southwest, and want to deny this part of the fight, it will look like Bamileke and Basa want to deny the fight of the UPC. I think we are the country that is moving forward, not moving backward. I think separation or division is moving backward, but federalism is moving forward, because the thing that we missed in the past to conserve, it was federalism. The federalism that Gonza and I used to set for our country was the voting. That's what we're supposed to fight to come back to.
My brother.
Want to be the future of our nation, not the history of our nation, because our nation hasn't started yet. That nation will start with the true and fair federalism. In the fair federalism, an Anglophone man could be a president, and Francophone man could be a president, and then we're all going to be a pure Francophone Anglophone or Anglophone Francophone. But the fact that I'm seeing some people defending Anglophone, some people are defending Francophone, we're going backwards. We're supposed to move forward. And there's no American who's going to come to Cameroon and tell me what we like and what we are going to do for ourselves. No matter how we're fighting among ourselves, Cameroonian is Cameroonian for Cameroonian. There's no way we're going to accept any person that is going to come from outside and tell what to do. We are not here to continue with neo-colonialism, neither with the colonialism mentality. The best colonialism mentality is to listen to Washington, listen to Paris, listen to whatever you call it, ONU, UN, and so on. So I was just trying to put my contribution to you and say, everything that you can say tonight is the right, it's true. But take that into consideration that it's a process. We cannot change it again. The variable is the future. Let's move on and change the future and be a peaceful Cameroonian for ourselves. We're conserving what our francophone and our anglophone as the heritage of our colonialism life. We cannot erase it. It's a part of us. It's a part of our diversity. That's why the FCA went to election last time with the slogan of force of the strength of diversity, la force de la diversité. Thank you very much, and I'm with you guys. I support you with all the things that you're doing with Media de Africa.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Napi. Thank you for that rich contribution. I think Mr. Kenneth will react to your rich contribution. Mr. Kenneth?
Yeah, Napi, believe it or not, you see, when you look at the Human Development Index, United Nations figures and statistics, trust me, you will agree with me that the British colonized countries are far advanced than just about any country that was colonized by France. You mentioned neo-colonialism. You know very well already that the British pretty much abandoned, most of these countries. But the French engaged in neo-colonialism. And what did the French do? Look, what most people don't know is that the sovereign bondage, the economic bondage that the French are administering on their African former colonies is the same thing that Germany did to France in World War II. Germany made 20 French francs to be equitable to 1 Reichsmark. Yes, that is what Adolf Hitler did. Mm-hmm. And so that is what they did. They devalued the French currency completely and extracted resources, a lot of resources from France during that period of the World War. So, of course, the French, couldn't stand this. They hated this to the last man standing. And anyway, the situation over there with Germany and France, the French corrected it. They corrected it over there. But come now to Africa. Shortly after the colonial period, the French did the same thing that the Germans did to them, to African countries. So that's why there's no development in La République du Cameroun and today in West Cameroon, or the occupied territories of Southern Cameroon. So my question, and what I have to all my brothers and sisters of La République, right, is that why on earth can you guys and ladies not see the struggle for the liberation of the occupied territories of Southern Cameroons as the real liberation of German Cameroon? Because a lot of us have asked ourselves, what is francs? We were using a different currency.
Mm-hmm.
We were using a different currency. Then you take our money to put in a bank in Beac or Beac Nationale and then Beac Central. Then you turn around and put, I don't know how many % deposit in the French Treasury. Then the French Treasury turns around and this is done amongst all. Why can you people not see that the liberation of Cameroon with a K, is beyond these two shrimp, Cameroon with a C, streams, people of streams, people who have no backbone. Why can you people not see that? One Cameroon means what?
So
in Switzerland, they speak French, they speak Italian and German in Switzerland. In Liechtenstein, they speak Romansh. You have South Korea, have North Korea. South Korea is far developed than North Korea. These are the same people, the same language, but different systems. So why can you not accept that the Southern Cameroon has a different system and adopt it? In fact, I would want to see all of Cameroon maybe speak English someday. Is that not the language that most of the world is speaking?
So, Mr. Napi, are you still on?
Yeah. So
okay, I think you've had Kenneth's approach to your rich contribution. This is a very kind of collaborative platform. We appreciate what you contributed, but we're asking you now, after 50 years of independence and with the marginalization experienced by the Anglophone Cameroonians, despite the fact that they are fighting to stand, like to be recognized, to be acknowledged as equal citizens, though in diverse ranks, because in that section too, we have CPDM strongholds that support Bia's government, who are from the English section, and are weakening that struggle. So according to your reaction, would you want Cameroon to remain a federated, two-state federated Cameroon, or would you want Cameroon to be united, or would you go for a secession?
No, basically, I am very straight on the problem. My problem is to go back to what we had decided in 1961.
Yes.
And what the federalism, the state of federalism that we have in 1961 might be modified by state of 10 states.
So how far are you sure that the terms of the return to 1961 will be respected after more than 37 years of being together with no respect given to the English section of Cameroon? How far are you sure that the present Cameroon will respect the fact that two independent bodies came together?
Modest and Kenneth.
Yes, sir.
Both of you are on stage, but I'm telling you right now.
Yes.
That it's not the people who oppress us. It's not their problem. It's our problem if we are not able to impose to other people whatever we want Cameroon to be. I don't want Cameroon to be what Fabia thinks. I don't want Cameroon to be what we think. I want Cameroon to be what me, I think as a Cameroonian. No one cannot come and talk on my behalf and decide on my behalf in Cameroon. No matter who you are, I want Cameroonian, I will stay Cameroonian, I will defend Cameroon. And then if everybody think like that, we believe that the division will be our solution and will be our solution. If we believe that the division cannot be our solution, we will fight and then we will get to the solution. And that's exactly why we're not in the war. Because we don't believe of the same thing. So the people who try not to respect what we have set down together and divide are those who are wrong.
Yes.
And then the meaning in Yahweh decide other things. That's the people who have failed us. And those people who fail us cannot be those who are going to run us again. So if we stand up for one Cameroon and then have one voice, we will stay united and then we will be in a federation. That's my voice.
Thank you so much for your contribution, Mr. Napi. Thank you so much. We have people who are also trying to come up. I want to first of all welcome James Tato, who is watching. He says he doesn't trust La République, that they will never respect any agreement. That's James Tato, who is a purple.
Before you finish,
yes,
I want to put the same thing. I don't trust La République. I don't trust any government that will put in Cameroon by the French people. I don't trust them.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I don't trust them, and then I will never follow them. I never fought Aito. I never fought Phobia. I won't follow whoever will come to Cameroon by French means.
Thank you for your contribution, Napi.
I understand. My grandma is from Baligam,
yes,
in the northwest, and my grandfather are from Bamasinge in Buddha in the French party. Who do you want me to choose between the term that I have on one side and the term that I have on the other side. They're all my family. And this has been for I'm the head of the Wanyapi family who come from my grandfather. I'm the fourth generation that came from the area, but from Kumbat and Kumbat, whatever it is, and they moved to Bamasinge, which is in Northwest now. My grandmother from another side moved from the Francophone side to the Northwest side and created his family over there maybe 400 years ago. So these are the things that are very difficult for people who know the history of their people to make a decision. I want to remain myself, not a Frenchman, not an Englishman. I want to remain Cameroonian. You can call Ambazonian for the whole land. I will buy it.
My brother, Nappy.
Thank you. Listen to Kenneth's reaction.
All of us have families that are brought from Cameroon Occidental and Cameroon Oriental. Please don't confound statehood with ethnicity. If we try to go very much back in time, I mean, or even now, I remember when Mr. George Achu was governor in the Eastern Province. The government that doesn't keep in touch with their people did a ceremony one time, and when they went out there, all the people in that village were not there. They had gone to Central African Republic because there was a very important event of that ethnicity with their brothers and sisters on the other side.
No, it's not a matter of ethnicity. It's a matter of family. I'm talking about my family. I'm not talking about my ethnicity. This is not a matter of ethnicity. Family can discuss ethnic. Family can discuss family.
Okay, thank you, Napi. Thank you for your contribution. I think we'll be taking you up again if some other people leave the line. We have a very easy line. We have people trying to call from left and right. Napi, thanks for your contribution. We have Don Judah, who says the union experiment has failed. Let us move on.
You got it.
We have Minan, who says that the public is a French government. Closing down. Also such control. It's like we have starting, my brother was watching all the way from Greenberg, Netherlands. This mentioned Pastor James is watching Dominica Watson and 5 February. You guys, you're welcome to contribute to this platform either through phone line or Skype. Mr. Kenneth, before we'll be observing in the next 2 to 3 minutes, we'll be observing a commercial break, so we will involve Dr. Ibu Santos, who was kind of held back. We also want to shout out to Kave Aku, one of my best friends who is watching. I like your comments, John Floyd. Mr. Kenneth will have to react on this scholars contribution. This is what most Cameroonians are taught to do. Because for the length of time that Cameroon has been as one country and enjoyed the unfair family that has always been preached, there's a lot of intermarriages. Because when we hear today of the grass field is northwest west, and when we hear of the South, that is we're talking of Littoral and south and some part of southwest. So it is kind of breaking a whole lot of family lineage.
There is nothing. I don't know why people are bothered by that. Paul Biya has relatives in Equatorial Guinea. And the other people, if you go to the north, what's his name? Amadou Ali's father's grave is in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So what are these people talking about? The people of, what is it? If Dwellers. The Dwellers, the Koses, or Bakose, and Kundus, or Bakundus, these are people who came from Congo. There's no problem. In Bamenda, in the Bamenda area, you have people who came from the Western Province who are just about a few years ago, the Bufela or Bafut, they came from Tibati.
Okay.
You have the Manu, the Efik and the Ekois, who are subgroups. What do you call them? Bayang, who are subgroup of the Efik, and then the Ejagams, who are subgroups of the Ekoi. They came from present-day Nigeria, and they settled at Osindenge, a place called Osindenge in Manu Division. So you go all over Cameroon, people came from all over. I met a lady working at Cheviche's Bank who told me that she's Congolese, but her grandfather came down from Yokaduma. So let us not confuse statehood with family ties and ethnicity.
Okay.
I have great grandparents who came from the Western Province, but I'm a Southern Cameroonian. In fact, as a matter of fact, look, in the Southern Cameroon's parliament, you had at least 3 first-generation East Cameroonians in that parliament. So let us not mix things. The statehood of the Southern Cameroons has to be restored.
Sure.
And then these people who are committing genocide, this genocide by Paul Biya and his, Betty, what is this name? Betty Asomo, the Minister of Injustice, Laurent Esso, this idiot, or whatever it is, the guy from the Northwest Province who passes for Minister of Territorial. All these people will face the criminal court at The Hague.
Before we observe a commercial break, I will say a special hi to Frank Lopro, the younger brother of Jeffy Pius, who is presently in California. Equally, I see a man for justice. James Stato says there's a glitch in the system. Thanks, James. We'll be observing a commercial break, and surely the technical team will see into that. Thank you.
Ensemble, lèvons-nous pour célébrer la fin d'année 2019 avec la communauté Oncam des États-Unis. Samedi 28 décembre 2019 de 19h à 4h du matin au Hampton Conference Center. Adresse 207 W Hampton Place, Capitol Heights, Maryland. Ticket disponible $70, $100 et $150. Contact 240 665 87 59 202 288 71 75 240 863 53 42 202 766 28 93 202 718 49 49. Sponsor officiel Fortuna Téléphone. Partenaire média Média de Africa. End of Year Paris. Un événement à ne pas manquer. Bonne année 2020 à tous.
Danser tout pana, tout pana. Y'a des femmes du champagne ici, c'est pana. On est là pour faire danser tout pana, tout pana. Y'a des femmes.
Ensemble, lèvons-nous pour célébrer la fin d'année 2019 avec la communauté Oncam des États-Unis. Samedi.
If you speak in the mic, please. No, speak here.
Oui.
Yeah? No, it's okay. It's okay. Speak, who can hear. Who can hear, yeah. Speak here.
Understand me? So I am completely embarrassed because I brought some words to say. I would like to do this.
Yes, Mr. President. Can you want to make a statement? Please. 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
2 minutes, Mr. President. I know you are a president, but here we are all equal. If you don't mind, I hope you don't mind. This is civil society organization. For a moment, to our bosses.
Bon.
Please.
Bon. Monsieur le Président, Madame, do you understand me?
Yes.
Madame la secrétaire générale de l'organisation.
If you speak in the mic, please. No, speak here.
Oui.
Yeah? No, it's okay. It's okay. Speak, who can hear. Who can hear, yeah. Speak here.
Understand me? So I am completely embarrassed because I brought some words to say. I would like to do this.
Yes, Mr. President. Can you want to make a statement? Please. 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
2 minutes, Mr. President. I know you are a president, but here we are all equal. If you don't mind, I hope you don't mind. This is civil society organization. For a moment, to our bosses.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying connected. We are back from the commercial break. I want to give special thanks to James Tato, who notified us of the glitch with the system. Hope our technical board has taken care of that. Thanks once more, James. We are coming back on board with a very strong, one of the strong panelists that we've always had here. It's been a while that Dr. Ngu Santos has not graced this platform. Dr. Ngu Santos, welcome to the platform once more.
Thank you, Mr. Modest. I am back here again. Hello, viewers. After a very long time, so busy with work, I've created some time again to be here and to talk to my people. So it's been a pleasure being here today. And hello, Mr. Kenneth. It's been a while, and I'm glad again to see you and hear from you guys.
Thanks, Doctor. You are coming in when we were in this talk, the heated debate of the level of arrogance demonstrated by the Cameroonian military and equally the managerial team, where from the word go they said there wasn't an Anglophone problem, and gradually and sluggishly accepted it by creating reforms that acknowledge that there was a marginalization factor. And till today, they have been reluctant to really submit to international pressure. And of recent, America has taken the helm of the UN security. And we watched Kelly saying this time is not the moment of talking. It's a moment of doing and not only talking. Because even the special status attributed to English Cameroon during the just ended national dialogue, and nothing, we have not known the content for more than 2 months now. And the parliamentary station unfortunately ended, and nothing was mentioned of the special status till America raised that unbearable pressure that has prompted to, the calling of the extraordinary plenary session that is due to hold for the next 2 weeks now. So I think you will come. You'll be entering there with a powerful and fresh energy on this particular point.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Modest. You know, politically at this juncture, I've seen a lot of heated arguments, a lot of debate. I've heard a lot of debate and heated arguments, as well as I've been following up the politics and being an actor in the politics from the Southern Cameroonian and Amazonian side. And I've always been very instrumental in the politics. But given the fact that there is a humanitarian disaster or catastrophe in Cameroon, whereby in the English Cameroonian side, the military has recklessly been killing people, as well as the resistance movements have adopted the high military stand of defending themselves. There have been mass human casualties. There have been exodus, both internally and externally, that has led to a refugee crisis within the border countries of Nigeria and Ghana, and why not Mexico next door, whereby there are a lot of refugees here struggling to get into this country, the United States of America. And then talk less about I myself and yourself here being held hostage abroad, of not being able to go back home. And even those who are not involved in politics stand the risk of being abducted, if they happen to go home, as you have heard from the cries on social media that people are being abducted for ransom. And then there's also a lot of people who have been amputated, wounded warriors and soldiers in the hospital, both on La Republic side and on the defendant side, or the defending side. So I see a humanitarian catastrophe taking place in that country that it really calls for some level-headed and individuals worldwide to intervene and try to see how they can restore peace and order. And by restoring that peace and order, we'll talk less about post-war reconstruction, of which the war is not yet over. It means we really need some help from both level-headed individuals from the Cameroonian or the Amazonian or Anglophone Cameroon side and the international community side, so as to try and work out things for the betterment of mankind and humanity. You see, I will be talking mostly of mankind and humanity because from a health and humanitarian professional base, I think I have a lot of work to do in this revolution, not only about the politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Before we proceed, we have B. Lydia who is asking for the phone number. There's also a Skype link that is shared beneath. B. Lydia, if you've not had it, I think our technical board will pass that under once, and more so you can connect it through that number. You will see a Skype number and equally a number that you can call and participate in the platform talk. Kenneth just came in, Dr. Ngu Santos just came in powerfully with the humanitarian factor. The war is still going on. Here, Cameroon government was lobbying for support from the international body for post-reconstruction. What is your take on that, Kenneth?
When the government of La République organized the Francophonie Summit, France sent some aid to Cameroon. And what turned out with that aid in order to prepare for the Francophonie conference, I would say, was a disgrace, because the French themselves came all the way into Yaoundé to tar roads. And this happened because they were afraid that the money that would be given to them is going to be embezzled. We have what we used to call Stade Amadou Ahidjo in the former federal capital city of Yaoundé. They now call it Stade Omnisport in Fandena. at Olembe, in the outskirts of Yaoundé, another football stadium is being built, which has been nicknamed, or they're going to call it Stade Biya or Stade Paul Biya, something like that.
Yeah.
So far, they are saying, I think the estimate is that they're going to spend it's either 287 million or 187, one of those type of figures, I can't remember. But that may just will be the most expensive stadium ever constructed on African soil. So when a toothless bulldog prime minister sits with foreign diplomats and is asking for reconstruction or what have you in the territories of Cameroon, or the occupied territories of southern Cameroon.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't believe these people. There's nothing to trust from whatever.
We have James Tato who is saying Ambazonia is supposed to give special status to La République because 75% of the wealth is coming from West Cameroon. James Tato, that is a very strong one.
That is true. I mean, that is true. The oil has been tapped from Isangele, the Rio del Rey oil basin, since 1977.
Yeah.
And then they are paying taxes not in Victoria or Limbe, they are paying taxes to the city of Douala. You know, the Sonara oil refinery, it's there, it doesn't function anymore at all. You see, this first of all, right, they have to be two separate states.
Yeah.
So I don't know why La République du Cameroun is trying to put the cat before the horse. First of all, they had mentioned that there's a disarmament, something that this former governor is part of that committee. And then now they're talking about, look, Southern Cameroon would have its own statehood. Let the people like Dion Gute and all these other people, they will come back home. When they come back home, that is when we can now function as a people. Not these token representatives we have today over there in La République du Cameroun. We participate in elective politics, not nominative politics. What are you nominating?
Yeah.
That's pure nonsense.
That is why when you see, it's like from you assessing the approach of the government to resolving this problem, I see like Cameroon has always given the wrong, attempted the wrong solutions in the heat of the crisis. I didn't see the impact of the National Bilingualism Bureau of what that was headed by Musonge. I didn't see its own impact. It is dead at arrival because I've not seen any impact that national bilingualism has put in this struggle. Do you see with me, or do you have a contrary opinion, or you see something that the bilingualism section or the faction that was created has contributed to resolve this crisis?
I think when you take the problem of the ongoing crisis and relate it to bilingualism, I think it's far-fetched because you will not be examining the root causes of the issue. The root causes of this issue, of this crisis, is well known. It began all with lawyers and teachers, you know, then generated into a conflict of ideas and opinions and disagreements over issues of statehood, over issues of statehood, and to resolve any matter, that will be the first item to put on the table, which is the statehood.
Yes.
Because you know, the history speaks for itself. That two entities had their own independence on separate days, and then separate days and separate years, and then came to live in fellowship, in harmony, as people who have to exist with their own prime ministers and their own governments. Then they went into an agreement of living like brothers and sisters without a treaty of union, without a treaty of union duly signed. And I think that the arguments are all there, and anybody who stands to say that, for example, I've had arguments a few days ago with some francophones who were telling me that how can a state spring out from nowhere? I asked I schooled that lady by telling her that if she knows what was called West Cameroon and East Cameroon, then you will not tell me about a state springing out from nowhere. Then I discovered that the problem that she had was the acronym or the appellation of the name Ambazonia. And that is what doesn't sit comfortable with her or comfortably with her. I told her that forget about the name. You can be called West Cameroon, you can be called Southern Cameroon, and today you decide to say you want to change your name to be Ambazonia. It doesn't mean that that territorial aspect becomes missing, right?
So many countries have changed their name.
Some countries have changed their name.
But the issue, Gold Coast that is today Ghana or something.
What we have to be looking at this moment from a humanitarian perspective, as I've always come back to say, is do we wait after or the international community sit and watch about 8 million people are eclipsed from the planet Earth before they come to intervene? And that is where my problem lies. And also, when it comes to the government of La République du Cameroun, I always like to be very open and transparent by telling you people that must they continue with impunity to eradicate our people? No. Is there an appropriate time whereby people can come together and talk about ending this human catastrophe, this inhuman catastrophe that is ongoing? Yes. Who are those who are capable of bringing this under some control? And then when you talk about it and you look at what the current political map of what is ongoing, like the much talked Swiss talks. The much Swiss talked about Swiss talks. And when you examine the Swiss talks, then you see the hands behind the Swiss talks, and it becomes more of a commercial interested talks than a conflict resolution talks. Because when you look at the fact that there is a company behind, an international company that is called HG and Berequa, and what do you call that? They say they are interested about the resources that are in the territory, and that is why they are putting their head into this thing, and that already leaves us again in doubt, because how can we be living slavery and going into slavery? How can we be living exploitation and moving into further exploitation? So I believe that we still can come out with another platform whereby there can be negotiation, genuine negotiation, because no matter any war that has been fought for 50 years, 100 years, talks have to be going on while the war is ongoing. So we have to find a middle ground whereby there can be a solution. Yes. And it takes level-headed individuals or parties that are not so embedded in the war to sit back and watch and say, what can I do to recommend something that can be put on that table? But I've also consulted with both the Ambazonian and La Republic side. I've discovered that there's a gross mistrust from how things have been going on. So now what is the problem? Both sides are scared or skeptical of one another, given that they have repeatedly disappointed the other. So in this case, they are requesting for international mediators, international observers and mediators, because no matter if we fight a war for 50 years, 100 years, all must end on the negotiation table.
Come to talk about that, Mr. Kenneth. Don't you see President Biya is just playing his own position by defending the fact that Southern Cameroon is the breadbasket of Cameroon. And now that Southern Cameroonians are standing to secede from the union, he is simply just playing hard and serving the Francophone Cameroonians the best he can do to make sure that he maintains the union, because when that separation takes place, Cameroon will be a desert.
Well, Paul Biya is just a continuation of Amadou Ahidjo.
Yes.
And so the French were looking for somebody who was more malleable than André Biya.
Yeah.
They found then Paul Biya is a continuation of that whole process.
Okay, we are signaled from the technical board that somebody's online. Hello? Please, can you say your name and your common? Yes.
I'm Brother Chorans of the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm the one using the Facebook account of Tamambang the Elysia.
Oh, okay. So what's your contribution for tonight's talk?
Yes, actually I have so much to say. The first thing would be to first talk about, sorry that I just came in now, about the humanitarian crisis in the southern Cameroon. We've requested that all those who are doing humanitarian assistance in southern Cameroon should not pass through La République du Cameroon, because this is a conflict of two states. Let's put the point so clear as they're supposed to be. We are no longer going to talk about negotiating or accepting the works of La République in the state of southern Cameroon. That one has finished. We are making it very clear. We contacted the office of the United Nations Organization of the Center of Humanitarian Assistance in Boya, and we spoke to them clearly that they should know that henceforth they must be using the things of southern Cameroon. It is not a joking matter. We cannot accept such insult from Biya and his government on our people. This is very finite. There is no way we are talking. We are angry, and we are very angry. We are making it very clear everywhere. In the US here, we are making it very clear. We are not taking anything again from La République. They have insulted our people. They are causing genocide on our people, and they cannot come again to pretend that they want to build. They are the ones who succeeded from the Union in 1972. We are taking it. The root cause of that issue is 1970, not the teachers' strike of 2016. That was just a passive issue. The root cause is the fraud of La République on the federation that was installed in the two countries from 1961. Because in 1961, after the two countries joined, we had Southern Cameroon with its own name and La République with her own name. When they joined, Southern Cameroon became West Cameroon as from 1961 to 1972. And La République was called in that union East Cameroon. So anyone who is using that name for West Cameroon is talking about federation. We are no longer at that level. We've made it very clear. I say I'm Brother Chorans of the Lord Jesus Christ. When we talk about restoration, we mean restoration to the state of the independence, total independence of Southern Cameroon. And when we are not talking restoration to West Cameroon, we are making our point very clear. And all of these people like Dr. Nisanto, who are struggling to make all those petty games with Dr. Constantine Chuenko, we have told them, just like in the last meeting, after the fall of La République, we shall do general hanging. We shall hang all those people who are supporting this genocide on our people. We spoke it last time in the United States. We had a meeting at the United States Institute of Peace. We spoke it there. I spoke that we shall do hanging. We shall arrest all of these people. This is not something to be taken as if it's a light issue. You cannot kill someone on the person's land and you use a gun and you go behind and you see that person is a terrorist. It does not work. You don't negotiate with thieves. On this earth, there's just a moral issue coming from your mouth. I'm a preacher. Tells you that if you steal, you have to debate yourself and you need to bet. We don't negotiate with thieves. And when we finish with the non-violence issue, there's a ladder. When we shall end at that level and La République does not succumb, we shall do a full-fledged war. We shall fight that war. You cannot be burning our people, killing them on their land, and you expect us to come and be begging. I am giving my name, Joe Ransom. I'm not hiding.
Thank you so much.
We struggle to talk to President Bobia, spoke to his people. I even asked Dr. Nisantos, give me the number of John Gute. We shall hang them. It's not a mockery. We shall hang them. When they go about sending people for humanitarian like St. Jomo, who are talking for federation, they right at the United States centers because they go there. We shall do hanging. All these Batam Bamileke people who are in that land, you know what to see, we shall do hanging. Mark my voice. will come. Everybody will come.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your contribution. Yeah, thank you for your contribution. And I want to say, if you are available, I would love to apply to invite you on my platform in the nearest future. You have the contact.
He has my number. Dr. Nissan to have my number. When these people are good at trying and making all this nonsense, we shall do handling.
Thank you for your contribution. Thank you. I would love you to be on the platform since you are here in the United States. I would love you to call Media 2. I would love you to call Media 2 and get contact to be on the platform. It's like you have a lot to contribute, which we very much welcome. We welcome that. Thank you. I think Dr. Santos, you can react to that.
In as much as I respect Brother Cho Ransom for his opinion, because I do not blame people who have become so fanatical as a consequence of the pressure and the genocide and exhaustive about this ongoing crisis. Because believe me, from a psychological point of view, and being a psychologist, I now understand that our entire nation of southern Cameroon, all the citizens living both in the territory and out of the territory are undergoing, or they are victims of post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder, the criterions for qualifying only warrant a mere witnessing or observing a trajectory. For example, you must have seen the graphic images of people being slaughtered alive, people being executed in an abattoir or a butchery marketplace, killed like animals. And we have known bad days in this revolution. We've seen a lot of blood. We've seen a lot of killings. The killings, I want to say, are not only killings perpetrated by the forces of disorderliness or the forces of La Republic. Some killings also are being perpetrated by thieves who have invaded the revolution, right? Thieves who have decided to come and pretending to be called Amber Boys, right? Kidnapping people for ransom, keeping people so long out of the territory without going back and without any amnesty, people being scared for their lives, and the people being buried alive. All those things for the past 3 years, getting to 4 years, have left people with depression, trauma, burnout, frustration, anger, and has transformed some to become psychopaths. Psychopaths in the sense that when people are mere onlookers of tragic things and inhuman acts, it's some sort of play in their psyche to also be transformed tomorrow to become such evildoers. So when you listen to people who talk in this revolution at the moment, you listen to them, you have to be, first of all, conscious of the fact that you have a lot going on in their mindset and in their brain neurotransmitters. Some are sick and they need a lot of counseling, which is therapy and medication management. And this is why it's always important for some of us to stand aloof and examine and re-examine and reconsider some of our stands. For example, I've been caught between really being an activist and really being a humanitarian. Somehow, people may not want or people may not like some of my stands at times because I'm wearing too many hats. Wearing the hat of a politician and wearing the hat of a doctor who gets up every morning and treat and do problem solving. And the kind of problems that I solve, imagine I'm just coming from the shelter, a homeless shelter in DC, which has 500 occupants of diverse mental disorders, right? From morning to night, I have 3 or 4 cases to consult. One patient, I have to spend 3 hours to do a comprehensive evaluation, treatment planning, and also distribute tasks to the psychiatrist and also to the nurse practitioners and all those. This is the task that I am confronted with. And these people I'm seeing are not different from the casualties that are caught in the bushes, trapped in the bushes, trapped in the forest, trapped in this political ongoing brouhaha, right? And when Brother Cho, people like Cho Ransom, they air their frustration, I look at it, I step back. Because if you, for example, we usually say that if you are taking your shower and you see a madman comes and pick your dresses and it's escaping, and you get out of that shower and start chasing that man, who is mad? Who is more mad? It is you who is chasing the madman to recover your dresses that is naked, that people will consider as mad. Because if they say, hold the madman, people will come back after you who is naked to hold first. So in this kind of a situation, consider people being depressed. Consider them suffering from anxious for something, which is like suffering anxieties. Consider them to be victims of post-traumatic stress disorder. Consider them to have picked up some psychopathic traits from the inhuman butcheries and bad things that are happening there. And when you want to respond to them, just tell them that, bro, you do not expect me, with all the intellectualism I got, with all the treatment planning tools that I got, with all the crisis management and resolution skills that I got, to behave like that other man, right? Who is in the streets with cutlasses and cutting people in the name of independence, right? I will step back and say, World War I ended on a table. World War II ended on a table. Will the Amazonian crisis or will the Southern Cameroon crisis not also end on the table? Of course, the answer is it will eventually end on the table. But the issue is given the distrust or the mistrust between these two entities that has spanned through the years. We will not want a charade to take place. We want people to come on the table, visit the root causes of the issues, right? Where it all started, why was there that mistrust, what has gone on through the years. Because the simple definition of this problem is an economic problem. You have taken people's resources. You have used it all through the years. You have deprived them of it, right? They have not been having a fair share of the cake. And anytime they stand up and they want to ask what they want that is theirs, you give them a little bit of pieces of meat, and after you beat them and arrest them and detain and bring cosmetic solutions to think that you have resolved the problem, you have not resolved the problem. So how can some of us who have been activists and who are still in activism sit and look how we can create that table to become possible? To become possible. Because if you do not stand and do it, somebody else will do it for you. And when that person does it for you, do not complain. Non-action is action, right? If you boycott an election, what do? You are indirectly telling the other person that go and win by fraudulent means, right? So it's better to be there and partake or disrupt, right? Than not, because you will not make your voice heard if you do not do something. For example, look at the guys going to Switzerland. Look at the guys going to Switzerland and going through the HD and Barry Corbett, right? They are pushing their own points. And at the end of the day, if there's no alternative, what happened? Their alternative becomes the only available alternative. So talking with both parties and trying to see if we can facilitate that table meeting is of very prime importance.
Thank you. Before we proceed, I will be saying hi to Rodrigo Wako, who just said saludos. Then we have Man for Justice, who reacted. Don Jinga, you are disappointed with something. I think you should express your point so perhaps media too can attempt to resolve it, so you shouldn't be disappointed. You said you are disappointed. So Don Jinga, come up with your point so we can be able to see if we can redress it. Kenneth, I think we'll be turning to you to give an insight, the status quo and the measures that have been taken and what is still going on now. I know you have a very rich illustration to put out there in respect to this before we round up.
Well, this is what I can say as far as the status quo is concerned. Going back to 1961, Amadou Ahidjo violated the Article 47 of the 1961 Constitution, where it said that the form or the character of the state will not be tampered with. Amadou Ahidjo in 1972 violated Article 47. Forward time to when his illustrious successor, or whatever they call it, Paul Biya took over from him in 1982, Paul Biya further compounded the violation and renamed the country in February of 1984. Renamed the country La République du Cameroun, thereby auto-excluding Southern Cameroons or La République du Cameroun itself from the union with Southern Cameroons. That is why Fonforju Godjumdika took him to court. And of course, since Fonforju Godjumdika was far more intelligent than Paul Biya, he had to follow him with guns.
It's like Mickey. Fomoko has difficulties hearing you. He says your volume.
Okay, my volume is an issue. Okay.
Thank you, Mickey.
So, thank you. So that is what happened since '61. Now, let me say this, and this is where, whether it is Paul, whether it is Amadou Ahidjo, or even if it was Andre Marimbida, or whether it's Amadou Ahidjo, or you can even argue and say even if it is Kamto. Or even you put even an Anglophone, even a Southern Cameroonian, the Southern Cameroonians need to restore their statehood. Let nobody be fooled. Let me tell you a little bit of what I'm saying. In '61, Amadou Ahidjo was made president of both the Cameroons, right? Yes. Okay, and Foncha vice president. In 1969 or '68, '69, somewhere in there, you had people from France like Abel Eyinga, who was submitting his candidature for the president of the country. And of course, back then, being what it was, his candidature was not accepted. Abel Eyinga is Bulu. His candidature was not accepted by Paul Biya. Okay, I'm sorry, by Amadou Ahidjo. Okay. Then people were encouraging Pa Foncha to run at that time. But he was vice president, and I guess he had seen the high-handedness of Ahidjo, and perhaps he was afraid. I don't know. Yeah. But he did not run. Before 1970, one of Amadou Ahidjo's prime ministers, Vincent de Paul Ahanda, had actually resigned because of the high-handedness of Amadou Ahidjo, the president at the time. Okay. Prior to the 72 so-called oui or yes referendum, Amadou Ahidjo was to dissolve the union and form, or let's just say dissolve the federation, the paper federation, because it was never really put into practice. They were still systematically annihilating the Southern Cameroons. Okay. In 72, part of the agreement, unwritten as it were, was that if the first of the country is from La République or French Cameroon, then the second is from the southern, the English-speaking Cameroon. That is how, when Ahidjo had created problems in actually nominating a prime, how do you nominate a prime minister in Southern Cameroon? Those are the type of that's the type of nonsense that Amadou Ahidjo engaged in, and ended up nominating Pamuna as prime minister. At the time when, in fact, I don't even know whether Pamuna was a member of parliament at the time that he was being nominated as prime minister over there at that time. Anyway, so by 72, part of the agreement that Amadou Ahidjo had was that they will abolish the position of prime minister of East Cameroon and of West Cameroon. That is why from after that 72, there was no position of prime minister at all, because the first was now Ahidjo, and then Pamuna, who was prime minister in West Cameroon, now became president of the National Assembly. So you had Amadou Ahidjo as president, the first in command, and then in 1972, the president of the National Assembly, Pamuna. And the 1972 Constitution stated very clearly that in case the president is incapacitated or what have you, then it is the president of the National Assembly who takes over. That was how it was as of 72. 3 years later, this man who was working at the presidency, I think he was Secretary General over there, 3 years later, what the English and the French had agreed to Ahidjo completely abandoned it and created the position of prime minister, bringing in Paul Biya as prime minister. Again, completely forgetting what or discarding what they had previously agreed to.
The post of the vice president.
The post of the vice president. There was no vice president. Speaker of the National Assembly, because it is rather Pa Foncha who was the vice president. Okay. In 1979, 4 years later, Ahidjo changed the constitution of 72 to state that if anything happens to the president of the republic, it is the prime minister who will take over. Amadou Ahidjo was now bypassing the English-speaking representation of Pa St. Muna, Solomon Tandeng Muna, who was president of the National Assembly. In their grand plan, that was 79. Barely 3 years later, Amadou Ahidjo, in his grand plan, sent Pa Muna for some, God alone knows whatever, sent him away to England. This happened in October of 1982. Pa Muna, while in England, got wind of the fact that Ahidjo was about to resign and began to understand while he was in England that this is what Ahidjo was trying to do. And he had to get a flight and rush back home. When he rushed back home, Amadou Ahidjo did not even know that Pa Muna had come back. I was surprised that he was there. But he now resigned, I think whatever that was, on the 4th or so, or the 3rd of November 1982. And after he resigned, on the 6th, it is Pa Muna who was there, St. Muna who was there, administering the oath to Paul Biya. The reason I'm going through all of this is to state the deep distrust that we Southern Cameroonians have with these people of La République. These are not people that you can who can maintain their word. So what are we doing with them? So we are about to restore the independence of the occupied territories of Southern Cameroon, a botched decolonization process. Finally, the United States was one of the countries that supported the independence of the Southern Cameroons at the United Nations circa 1960-1959. The United States voted in favor for the independence of the Southern Cameroons. We've been working very, very hard, extremely hard, and now the United States has the presidency of the Security Council at the United Nations.
Yes.
President Paul Biya has called for an extraordinary session of what passes for a bicameral assembly over there in Wakele. An assembly which, by the way, they burnt that assembly. That party, the Flam, representing themselves of flames, they burnt it. Burnt Palais de Congrès. I don't know, they want to burn the whole Cameroon. Maybe they should also burn A2D. You know? Anyway.
Yeah.
He has called for an extraordinary session. What is he calling for an extraordinary session for?
After the normal session.
After the normal session went over. I have said it on this program before. It is not Paul Biya. Southern Cameroons existed before him and will exist after him. It is not Paul Biya who will determine what will happen to the Southern Cameroons. It is Southern Cameroonians themselves.
Yeah.
The Southern Cameroons intelligentsia abroad and the Southern Cameroons inside Southern Cameroons. In fact, even with collaboration with those in the Biya government.
Exactly. Thanks so much for that contribution. You have 1 minute to round up. We are running out of time. Dr. Ngu Santos, who has braved the odds to be here today.
Mr. Kenneth, I always appreciate your in-depth knowledge of the historical and political developments. And you say it as it is. Congratulations for that.
Sure.
And when I've come here more is to not only to share my own opinions or weigh in from my own psychoanalytic angle, or troubleshoot or do crisis management and intervention, but also to get some knowledge from Mr. Kennedy about some intricacies of what really happened within that structure. But in a nutshell, I think it takes all of us together to work out and come out with what will be acceptable to our people. Because governance, any government that does not take into consideration the interests of its people at heart, then it's a failure.
Sure.
And I think our people have spoken, and they know the direction they want to go. It is left for us and those on the opposing side, as well as the international community, to understand that this problem will never be solved by blood and iron, right?
Yes.
Otto von Bismarck said it, that the greatest question of the day will not be resolved by speeches, but by blood and iron. Yes, but later on, it proved that it couldn't continue by blood and iron. It should end on a table. World War I ended on a table. World War II ended on a table. And the Amazonian question will be resolved on the table. Everything we are asking is for the international community to now step up, especially with the taking over of the United Nations Security Council by the United States, who has always been calling for peace, dialogue, without precondition and stuff for 4 years, why our people have been eclipsed from planet Earth. This is the time for them to come in and serve as mediators or international observers to any accord. And for that, we stand here as level-headed intellectuals from the diaspora to facilitate any good resolution that will bring good outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Santos. Thank you, Mr. Kenneth. You see with me that when I introduced Mr. Kenneth as one of the finest analysts of political standard situation of Cameroon, I meant it, because most of the platform followers, we have Don Jinga, who says Kenneth is very knowledgeable and always speaks facts, and he learns a lot from him. So many people have acknowledged that. I want to personally invite Mr. Cho, who is answering under the shadow of Be Lydia, that if you have that time, connect with Media 2 and be on our platform. I will welcome you for any kind of contribution you want to give here. We are rounding up now. I want to thank those who have stayed connected from the first minute to the last minute, and we thank you for your always being there. I want to thank our collaborators. We thank President, we call him President, that is Marishal Tiamo. I thank Honore, who has been contributing from his own side, though out of state. I thank our technical board led by Jules Kamful Lati, who has been doing a great job. I want to now thank those who have stayed connected and say take an appointment when our flyers go out. It's been an interesting debate with two great invitees who honored my invitation, and they have put out sufficient information that has entertained your time, and I think you will not regret it. Thank you so much. Take an appointment when our flyers go out for the next production.
Thank you.